I think we're ready to go. All right. Thank you, Heather. Uh, Good afternoon and welcome to ECAP Insights. It's our new webinar series kicking off today with our first topic being global deployment methodologies for account recs, as you can see on the screen. This is going to be an ongoing educational and informative series. These are going to be tips and tricks that Heather Brown is going to bring to you. These will be snack bite sessions, 30 minutes or more, roughly around the lunch hour. We know depending on the time zone you're in, it may be a little bit different, but we want this to be a quick hits, super helpful and informative and supportive. And we're going to leave room for Q&A towards the end of these. So we also encourage interactive towards the end after Heather goes through some initial content that she's got planned. The other thing I would ask you to do is hang on till the end today. We'll go through some subsequent topics that we plan to have for the rest of the year as we go forward. And just as a reminder, these will be every other month, third Tuesday for 30 minutes. With that, I am very proud to introduce Heather Brown. Take us away.
Thank you, Corey. All right. Thanks for joining me today. I really appreciate folks spending time with me on your lunch hour. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Heather Brown, and I'm a senior director here at eCapital Advisors, and I'm responsible for our account reconciliation and transaction matching service line, which is the area that I focus on exclusively here. I've actually spent 22 years focused on account reconciliations. I was one of the founding employees at Blackline, where I invented their first generation product before leaving to found a small software company that Trintech acquired, and it became the basis of the Cadency platform. While at Trintech, I also had a chance to work with their legacy matching product, ReconNet. After Trintech, I spent almost 7 years at Oracle in product management, building out all of the account reconciliation solutions that Oracle has. And then from there, I made my way to OneStream, where I worked with some excellent people on the advanced application solutions team. And we provided support for clients that were using the OneStream platform. You're going to hear me describe myself at times as a platform evangelist, and it's because I truly and absolutely love the OneStream platform because of the power that it provides clients to meet business objectives. And so my favorite saying in that regard with respect to the platform is, if you can think it, you can build it. When I left OneStream and made my way over to the delivery side with eCapital, that's exactly what I did here in my group. I established a practice here that's focused exclusively on account reconciliations and transaction matching. And I used the OneStream platform to develop a series of accelerators that help clients get the most out of their OneStream investment. It's been a lot of fun. So today's webinar is intended to help you understand how you can structure your account reconciliation implementation to deliver value as quickly as possible before the final design can be known. And this is important because I found when working with clients over the past 20 years that there's a lot of information that's important to the final design that simply can't possibly be known at the beginning of these projects. And I'm going to spend a couple minutes exploring why that is. If you think about it, when was the last time that you had the opportunity to really take a look at how reconciliations are performed at your company, or assessed how long it takes preparers to reconcile specific accounts, or analyzed where the opportunities for automation might exist? So what I found when working with clients, the answer to those three questions is we haven't, not for lack of interest. There's just simply not enough time in the day and too many competing priorities to make it happen. So when planning for an account reconciliation implementation, there's danger in spending too much time up front on that analysis. I know for certain that people don't realize how much work has to be put into the analysis before decision on automation methods for specific accounts can be made. And you could easily find yourself in this paralysis by analysis cycle, spending way too much time in the analysis phase thinking about things before any real value is delivered to the organization. And that tends to make management really nervous. So we have to avoid that. So my objective for today is to share some techniques that can be used to deploy the OneStream account reconciliation solution quickly and efficiently while developing a plan for phasing in automation so that you can get the most out of your OneStream investment. For those of you on today's webinar that might be new to OneStream's account reconciliation capabilities, I want to kind of demystify some of the acronyms we're going to be using. We're talking today primarily about RCM, which is the solution that's responsible for providing the tracking and the reporting and the compliance management around reconciliations, while also providing some automation features for certain reconciliation methods. So RCM is bundled within the OneStream Financial Close, or OFC, marketplace application. We're also going to be talking a bit about transaction matching, or TXM, which is also part of that OFC application. If you're planning an implementation of RCM, one of the first decisions that you need to make is how to deploy it. And what I mean by this, what features you're going to focus on in that first phase of implementation. One of my favorite deployment methodologies is one that I call Global Big Bang on Tracking. And it's a methodology that I'm going to focus on for today's session. So this methodology takes the pressure off of understanding in the first phase which reconciliation preparation methods should be used for each account. And instead, it just focuses on getting the tracking and the repository features implemented first. So with this approach, preparers will continue reconciling their accounts as they normally would, but instead of uploading those reconciliations to a network drive or to a SharePoint site for storage, they attach them inside OneStream in the RCM tracking solution, and there they're securely stored and then routed through the approval process. So it's worth explaining, why do I like this methodology? And the first reason is it can be deployed very quickly. In one of my recent projects that we finished late last year, we used this approach and deployed to the participating global regions in just a few months. This is a worldwide organization that has a footprint in virtually every country. We provided each region with a template to fill out that has their account assignments and account groupings on it. And then we recorded a Teams training session where we provide instructions to those regions on the information that we were asking them to collect for us. And then we gave them some time to collect the information. They sent it back to us, and then we imported that centrally in our little tiny project team. As needed, we did hold some Q&A, or question and answer sessions, with these regions to address questions that came up during the data collection process. And then we wrapped up this phase of the project by recording another Teams training session, this one targeting the preparers and the approvers, explaining how to upload their reconciliations and navigate through the approval process. It was quick, easy, and painless, done in just a few months. The second reason that I like this approach, this methodology that we call Global Big Bang on Tracking, is that it provides easy access to the reconciliations. And that is absolutely essential for anyone that's planning to use OneStream's reconciliation automation tools to change how reconciliations are prepared. The reason why is when you're considering which preparation tool to use for an account, you have to analyze that on an account by an account basis. And you have to start by understanding first where the information comes from to substantiate that account balance. The easiest way that I've found to do that is to look at the reconciliations that are currently being done for these accounts to understand what the reconcilers are doing. And just lessons learned, the last thing that you want to do when you're going through this process is have to email reconcilers to ask them to send you your reconciliations. You're going to lose a lot of time in your project if you do that. You're going to spend days going back and forth with these folks, explaining what you're asking for, correcting them when they send you the wrong files. And it's just not a good plan. So it's much easier to do this analysis if you have access to the reconciliations yourselves from a secure repository where they're guaranteed to exist and they're easy to find. They're searchable. You just filter or query and locate the ones you're looking for. So this global Big Bang and on tracking methodology provides another third benefit in that it enables surveying preparers to understand how long it takes to prepare the reconciliations so that you can begin to understand where the time savings opportunities exist. And you might think you know where your teams are spending the most time here, but what I've found in practice is that there are always surprises. So I'll give you another example. At one of the projects that I worked on last year, in addition to using that global Big Bang on tracking deployment method, we also targeted for simultaneous implementation a smaller automation project within one of the departments at this company with a plan to use two different automation methods, balance comparison and transaction matching, to automate certain of the account reconciliations. And we targeted some key accounts that we expected that we were going to see some time savings. Bank reconciliations were on that list, but they weren't even near the top of the list. We had other recs that we knew were really painful for folks. And our working understanding going into this project was that bank reconciliations really weren't taking the team that much time, today to prepare them. And whoa, boy, were we wrong. So when we got into working on the design for how we were going to organize the data, build the match sets, and that sort of thing, we found out pretty quickly that the reconcilers didn't even have access to the data that was required to correlate a summary deposit settlement from the bank to the individual transactions that would comprise that settlement. And so what they were doing each month in their manual process is just hunting and pecking, like guessing at these payments to try to figure out which ones matched to the payment at the bank, spending hours and in some cases days at their larger disbursement accounts or depository accounts to figure out which those matches those were. And, to be clear, that's a solvable problem. That's a data problem. We can fix that once we become aware of it. And I'll be addressing in one of our upcoming webinars how we addressed that problem. But for today, the message that I wanted to leave you with is that you're likely to be surprised by what you find when you survey your preparers on how long it's taking them to reconcile individual accounts. I know that I was surprised. Even 20 years in this space, I continue to be surprised. So how should you go about surveying your users? Your company may already have survey tools that are available to use, and certainly those tools are a legitimate method. For me, I like keeping functionality within the OneStream platform because I absolutely love the reporting features that the platform provides. So if it were me, I would create a quick survey dashboard that captures responses to key questions like, how long did it take you to prepare this reconciliation? Do you think it could be performed using transaction matching? What specific reports are you using to substantiate the account balance? And how could we make this process more efficient for you for this particular account? And then I would use a business rule to populate that survey table with all the accounts that are assigned to the preparers so that they can provide the responses on an account by an account basis. Once we have those survey responses captured, then we can use that information that was shared with us to figure out how we want to prioritize our efforts around optimizing, automating performance of account reconciliations. So for accounts that are targeted for automation, the first decision that you have to make is which automation method do you want to use? And there are three fabulous tools that OneStream provides for reconciliation automation. The first one is transaction matching. And with this method, we import transactions from related data sets and we match them together. And then whatever is left unmatched at the end of the month, that set of transactions becomes the basis for explaining the general ledger balance. This has to match. So transaction matching is commonly used for bank reconciliations, intercompany payables and receivables, high volume suspense or accrual accounts where you can match posted debits against posted credits. The second method is balance comparison. And with this method, we take a subledger balance that we import and we compare that balance to the general ledger. Accounts payable, accounts receivable, fixed assets, and inventory are the four most common types of accounts that we would assign that type of a preparation method to. But in some cases, it's not enough just to do that balance comparison. Sometimes you have to do additional analysis on the composition of that subledger data to make sure that the data or the balance in the subledger itself is reasonable. So I'll give you an example. At another recent client, in-transit inventory fell into that category. For the in-transit inventory account, we had to tie the GL to the subledger, but we also had to look at those in-transit items and verify that they weren't excessively aged. So we ended up automating the comparison of the GL to the subledger at the plant level, took the people entirely out of the process, and then prepared separately a comprehensive analysis, aging analysis of the in-transits across all plants. And we assigned that one task to a senior accountant, and it worked really well. So I have another example of this supplementary analysis that I wanted to share. There we go. We should see it now. So if any of you have had a chance to review a recent demo of RCM by the fabulous OneStream Solution Consultants, they often present this dashboard, and I love it, in the context of an accounts receivable reconciliation. So with accounts receivable, of course, just like my in-transit inventory example, it's essential to make sure that your GL matches your subledger. And even in this case, we would handle that automation or that comparison automatically and auto-rec it as long as those balances match. But it's also important to analyze the composition of your receivables balance for collectability to make sure that you don't need to write off bad debts. So this is another excellent use case for a OneStream dashboard, which is a standard feature of the OneStream platform. This particular dashboard that you're looking at presents an aging analysis of the receivables invoices, visually identifies where you could have collectability exposure, and then helps enable the decision on whether a write-off would be required. You can bundle this analysis into the individual reconciliations at the entity account level, or you can perform it centrally like we did with our in-transit aging review by a more senior accountant across all entities at one time. The third method that we have available for automation is spreadsheet integration. If you had a chance to attend last year's Splash conference, this is one of the topics that I presented on in conjunction with one of my clients, Brookfield Properties. OneStream has excellent integration with Excel. You can take transactions or data that's in an Excel spreadsheet and push it directly into OneStream without even having the desktop application open on your computer. Brookfield's team, just based on the nature of their business, they're a mall property owner. They work heavily in Excel for certain model-based account balances. So this was the preferred method for some of their reconciliations that required Excel-based modeling. Once you have selected which automation method that you want to use for an account, then you can start implementation of that automation. Clearly, priority should be based on two factors. One, the level of effort that's currently spent on manual preparation so that you can, save money sooner. but you also have to consider the work required to implement the automation. So earlier, I talked about an example where we had a client that uncovered a data problem with their bank reconciliation where they couldn't match those summary deposits to the payments that made up the deposit. It took us a while to gain access to the reports that were necessary to correlate that summary deposit to the payment detail. And then for the same client, we had other automation initiatives that involved data that users were obtaining currently from certain Oracle reports. We didn't want to automate a report-based process, so we took the time to develop the queries that we could use to go pull the data from Oracle directly so that it's a completely hands-off automation cycle. Now, with this global Big Bang on tracking methodology, once you're live on that first phase with the repository and the tracking features, you can go live on subsequent automation initiatives on an account by an account basis. In fact, you should. As you get the work done for each account, transitioning it from its repository upload method to an automation method, simply work with that population of the users that are involved with that particular account reconciliation and provide training on that new method. They're already familiar with using the solution, so this incremental change is really not that big of a deal. And change management is, a big part of these projects. Managing that effectively, I think, is one of the most important aspects to consider. And just what I found over the last 22 years, this approach of phasing in the automation initiatives is the least stressful method on staff and has resulted in delivering the most value in the fastest manner possible. Now, if we take the information that I just discussed and present it graphically, we can see that we have two distinct project phases to consider. The first phase is focused on getting the tracking and repository features in place. So it starts with creation of that data collection template. These are just spreadsheets that OneStream actually creates effectively for you. You just have to download them, and it contains the list of accounts that are in scope for reconciliation at whatever level reconciliation is typically performed. And usually it's, for most of my clients, it's been at the entity account level, or in some cases, the entity account cost center level. So then once you have those data collection spreadsheets ready, you just need to create and distribute training videos that you'll share with your regional administrators. These are the people that reside at the in-country level or the business unit level that would know how to properly assign, prepare, and approver names to each of the reconciliations in their group. Practically speaking, those administrators are going to need a couple of weeks to pull that information together. I think in our recent project, we gave them 2 weeks and ended up extending it to 3. You're probably going to have to send out email reminders to chase the information down. You may find yourself needing to schedule sessions with each region to answer questions about the templates. Some of the areas that people can sometimes get confused is like in the whole grouping area. Like if we don't do separate reconciliations and we group them together, that can be a little bit confusing for folks to understand. Once those collection templates, though, have been returned to you, have the project team import them centrally. It's like a one-time thing that has to be done, and I just don't see a lot of value in training a global organization on how to do that. And then lastly, create and distribute a training video for the preparers and the approvers explaining how to upload their spreadsheets into the tracking system and navigate through the approval process. Most certainly leverage the email notification capabilities that come with account reconciliations that will fire off notices to people, letting them know reconciliations are ready to be worked on. Now, if I can offer one important word of advice as it relates to this first phase, make sure you have really strong executive backing, if possible, by the global CFO. I've just seen it too many times. Inevitably, you're going to receive pushback from some regions that they're just too busy. This isn't a priority. They can't meet the project timelines. And it really helps if you have the executive team communicate in advance of the project commencement to the global accounting leadership the importance of this project and how there's an expectation that everyone's going to support it. And therefore, if you find yourself where resistance is encountered, which sometimes it is, additional communication can be sent out by that leadership team. Now, once you're live with that first phase, which again should be very short duration, 3 to 4 months is a very reasonable timeline to get that tracking and repository functionality in place. Once you're live with that, we can begin work on the second phase. The very first thing that I would do is begin the process of conducting surveys to identify where those automation opportunities reside. Review the survey results and then prioritize your work. I would take this opportunity to consider whether it makes sense to centralize performance of certain reconciliations. Maybe it doesn't make sense to have reconciliations that are very suitable for automation to reside at the country level if it could be centralized within shared services and done by a smaller team in more of a hands-off fashion. And then schedule mini go lives for each automation initiative. And quite frankly, by this time in the project, you should be at a point where maybe after the first couple of these go lives, you can self-manage this work yourself. I promise you, it's not rocket science. And as a delivery professional, my job is to make sure your team is enabled so that you can continue going at your pace, subject to any resource constraints that you might be facing. Now, if you found today's session helpful and are interested in exploring education on how to utilize some of OneStream's account reconciliation automation tools, I'm going to ask you to mark your calendars for the sessions that I've scheduled for the remainder of the year. I'm going to be focusing on some of the more technical aspects of transaction matching implementations, starting on April 16th, where I'm going to talk about how to effectively design transaction match sets. It's more art than science, I've found, and there's some things I've learned over the years that I would love to share with you all that can, I think, help improve or streamline this process for you. On June 18th, I'm going to be talking about data enrichment strategies for transaction matching. I know this sounds incredibly exciting, but trust me, it is. I'm going to explain common techniques that we use to solve problems like those that I described today, where there isn't a clear correlation between data, like when you have summary bank transactions that don't easily relate to the detail. I'm going to show you how we've solved use cases like that at other clients. On August 20th, I'm going to talk about how to use transformation lookup tables and other data manipulation techniques to both normalize and enrich the data so that it's optimized for matching and it gets us to the highest match rate possible. In that session, I'll actually be sharing code snippets that you can use in your data source definitions. And then on October 15th, I'm going to talk about solutions that we use. It's part of our accelerator packages to track warning and error conditions, ensuring that we don't allow incomplete or invalid data to enter the matching workstream to begin with. And then on December 17th, I'm going to talk about how clients leverage the matching process within transaction matching to generate journals for post back into their accounting systems. So I wanted to close today with a big thank you for joining my session. As promised, we're going to keep it under 30 minutes, but I did want to open the floor for questions, for anything that came up that my content might have generated.